Hey everyone, what's up? Marcos Vegas here. Fight Up TV live chat happening right now as I'm just actually finishing up the fight between Jorge Linares and Luke Campbell. Let me just, I know he won via decision, but I'm going to hear the score real quick. 115-113 Campbell. Ooh, I don't know about that. 114-113 Linares. Or Linares. 115-113. I could see it. It was a close fight. So let's get right to it. I'm gonna go ahead and cover a few topics, you guys. The Canelo Triple G replay, which I watched the fight again and rescored it watching the replay. We're gonna go ahead and cover Andre Ward retiring, this Jorge Linares versus Luke Campbell fight, as well as the Bellator MMA fights and Outlaw CMS. We will go ahead and talk about Wilder versus Ortiz as well. So Canelo versus Golovkin replay. So I had a chance to really watch the replay and analyze it when they showed it again. When I was there live in person, I had it was a good seat, but not my usual seat. I'm usually on press row, and I wasn't on press row this time. I wasn't on the floor. I was a few rows up. And from my vantage point, like I said it in the last live chat, I had it a draw actually, 114-114, but it was a really bad view. I missed a lot of punches, but from that vantage point, I had it 114-114. So when I heard the last scorecard, Don Trella, 114-114, I was like, okay, I could see that. So I watched the replay, and it was a close fight, competitive fight, but my score was a lot different on the replay than from what I saw live and in person. And excuse me, guys, a lot of pollen allergies up in the air right now. So I scored the fight 115-113 Golovkin on the replay. Felt it was a close fight, but Golovkin clearly won the fight for me in that replay. I felt that Canelo Alvarez fought the same fight that Landy Lara actually fought against him when he fought way back in Las Vegas. And I gave Canelo that fight against Landy Lara, and I gave Canelo that fight because I felt he was a bit more active, threw more, and he was bringing the fight. With this fight, I felt the same thing. I didn't think Canelo landed enough punches to offset what Gennady was doing, and I felt that Gennady had the better punches. He was more consistent with those punches, and he pushed the fight. I had it 7-5, 115-113 Gennady Golovkin. There was, I want to say, 2-3 rounds that were swing rounds that you could have given either way. It was a close fight, but I am comfortable saying it now, even though it was a close competitive fight, that I felt Gennady Golovkin overall should get the nod, and honestly don't think it was a draw. I felt that conclusively, for me, when I was watching it, Golovkin won the fight. So with that being said, the rematch could be happening really soon. I know when I spoke to the VP of Golden Boy, Eric Gomez, he said that he had a meeting with Tom Loeffler last Friday about the rematch. All camps are saying that they feel they should have an immediate rematch that's like in the best interest of both fighters, so we just hope that it happens sooner rather than later. I'm hoping that it happens in December, but honestly, I highly doubt that it happens in December because they're going to need time to promote, tour, and all that stuff, and we're already at the end of September. They'd have to get in camp right away, so I think that December is just kind of too close. They'll probably do the rematch in May, actually. So that was my takeaway from the replay. But I do want to make a point on that. I feel that Canelo Alvarez should be given a lot of props for the way he fought his fight. I felt that he fought a beautiful fight when watching the replay. Just absolutely beautiful fight in which he was able to move around the ring, make Gennady miss a lot of punches, throw his punches. Canelo looked really slick in there. Thing is, he just wasn't, for me, my personal opinion, he just wasn't consistent with that. But he should be given credit for the performance that he had. He's an elite fighter. He stood in there with a guy who was bigger than him, was supposed to knock him out and completely dominate him. The only other guy that went the full 12 rounds with Gennady was Daniel Jacobs. Daniel Jacobs outweighed Gennady Golovkin, and Daniel Jacobs was knocked down. And a smaller guy, Canelo Alvarez, went in there, made Golovkin miss a lot, took his best punches, and wasn't knocked down. So that shows you the type of fighter Canelo is, and then I feel that he should be given a lot more credit for the performance that he has, credit that hasn't been given to him his whole entire career. And really, with this performance, with me looking at it, you know, I feel like, man, Canelo's legit, guys. Canelo's a legit fighter. He's up there in terms of skills, in terms of making a difference between him and other fighters. I think now he's in a different echelon of fighter. And if he was any less of a fighter than what he displayed 2 weeks ago, he would have been knocked out or hurt by Golovkin. And he was able to take Golovkin and at times make him miss, make him not look like this monster that he was. So I think with that, fans should be giving Canelo Alvarez a lot more credit than what they give him. I think with that, for many, I think that performance should have sold them on Canelo, seeing that, you know what, this guy is legit, he's the real deal, and he has the skills to be able to hang with these guys. So that's my 2 cents on the Canelo Triple G fight. Like I mentioned, I had it 115, 113 for Gennady Golovkin on the replay. Let's go ahead and move on to this Linares versus Luke Campbell fight. Briefly want to touch on it. Jorge Linares, if you guys haven't seen him, this guy is so technically precise, and when he does his movements, his lateral movements, when he throws a punch, it's such a beautiful thing to see. He does them so perfectly. It's like you're looking at a textbook, and if you want to see something that's done per the textbook, you take a look at Jorge Linares in person and what he does, and you're just like, wow, you know, this guy's so skillful, and there's a bit of art to it, to what he does. It's like poetry in motion when you see Jorge Linares fight. This Campbell fight, I felt Linares started out strong early, and then he kind of got comfortable, to be honest, with Luke Campbell. And he kind of, not he didn't show up, but that he got a little too comfortable, I feel, with Luke Campbell in there. And that he allowed Luke Campbell to get back in the fight. And he didn't use enough combinations for my liking. He started the first 3-4 rounds with just blitzing him, combinations after combinations, moving around, and then all of a sudden his hands started going down. He wasn't throwing as many. He was trying to pot shot. Yeah, spider. Where's my head? Right there. Yeah, it's Halloween. And I can't talk. It's Halloween and they decorated. That's what happens when you drink a iced coffee. Or back to Linares. Back to Linares. So in this Campbell fight, I felt that he got kind of lackadaisical. He started pot shotting. He got a little bit too comfortable, and it allowed Luke to go back in the fight. Much credit to Luke Campbell. He showed a lot of heart after being knocked down in that second round with a cut. He fought his way back into the fight. He scored a lot. He showed a lot of deficiencies that Linares has, especially when he was throwing combinations to the body and the head. It was landing a lot for Luke Campbell. And Luke Campbell, he has good skills. He's an Olympic champion, gold medal. So people shouldn't write him off. I feel that when I saw him the week before, I felt that his style would give Linares problems because of him being so big and rangy and being a southpaw. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Antonio DeMarco. We know what happened in the DeMarco fight. DeMarco was getting his butt kicked up until the 11 rounds, but he was landing punches up to that point. But in the 11th round, Linares just completely fell apart. Got cut up, got hurt, and they stopped the fight. So when Luke started getting in his groove, getting his timing, getting his rhythm, we started seeing that he was giving Linares some fits, some troubles, and especially to the body and to the head. So I think Luke shouldn't be too down about this performance. I know he was going through a lot of trouble. His dad passed away 2 weeks before the fight. So imagine, you know, having to fight and going through that, not being there around your family, and then having to go through this fight. I'm sure it took a lot out of him emotionally, and it took a lot of mental fortitude for Luke to stay into the fight and not drop out as well. Given that, though, I thought it was a pretty solid performance from Linares. He looked human. That's the thing with the Linares fight. He looked so good and strong in the beginning, and then you start seeing him being very vulnerable at certain points. And that, to me, what makes a Linares fight a very entertaining fight, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if he's going to get hurt or if he's going to get cut, because his body of work has shown that he is prone to getting hurt or cut in fights. They're saying Mikey Garcia and Jorge Linares at 135 or at 140. I'd like to see it at 35. 140, yeah, I still, it's a tough fight. I think for Linares to win that fight, he has to fight a perfect fight. He has to use his speed and combinations. And really, Linares has to fight Garcia going in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. If he's able to do that, I can see Linares beating Mikey Garcia, but it's a very, very, very tough fight, given that Mikey is a very precise, complete, and disciplined fighter. Mikey always keeps a good guard. He's economical with his punches. When he's throwing something at you, he's just not throwing them to stay busy. He's throwing them because he sees something there. So it'd be a great fight. I would love to see it. I know Garcia spoke about potentially fighting Miguel Cotto at 154 pounds. To me, that's, geez, the balls on Mikey Garcia to move up another 2 weight divisions to go and fight someone like Miguel Cotto. Jesus Christ, man. That's a real fighter right there. Can he beat Miguel Cotto? I think he has a style to prevent some fits for Miguel Cotto, but Cotto's... You know what, though? Cotto's not that big of a 54. And honestly, I think Cotto can still make 47. Cotto's not a big guy. Cotto's like 5'7". So when they say like, oh, Cotto's too big, I don't think so. I think they're around the same body type, to be honest. So it's just a matter of Cotto's age, to be honest, in that fight, and the style contract. But we'll see. Would I rather have Cotto Garcia versus Cotto Linares? I'd rather see Cotto Linares, to be honest. To me, it's more interesting of a fight, given that Linares is on such a good streak right now. He hasn't lost in, what is it, 5 or 7 years since that loss to Yayo Thompson in Mexico in Cancun. So he has a good little streak, but Linares is like on the brink of being pound for pound right now. You know what? He should have put away Luke Campbell. Luke Campbell's a very good fighter, but I think at this point, with the win over Mikey Garcia, Linares will now enter the pound for pound talks, but he needs fights like that. He needs to start distinguishing himself above the rest to be considered in the pound for pound conversations, because he has all the skills. It's just he has to consistently put them together, and he has to put them together and get legacy building wins over great opponents. And I think Mikey Garcia would be someone like that to get a big win. So what do you guys think about the Linares Garcia fight? I want to go ahead and read your comments real quick and see what you guys think. Who do you like in that fight? And while I read your comments, after that, we're going to go ahead and segue to Andre Ward for a little bit, and then the Bellator MMA fights that happened over the weekend, which were great fights. We got a lot of good knockouts by Paul Daley over Lorenz Larkin, and Aaron Pico of Whittier over his opponent. Linares is a stud. He may pull an upset. You know what? Like I'm saying, for Linares to win, not only does he have to fight a perfect fight, but I feel that he has to use all his natural ability. I think Linares is a better athlete overall than Mikey Garcia. And he just has to fight the perfect fight, but he has to fight in and out, and use his speed and combinations. If he's doing that in and out, moving, using his lateral moving in and out, landing combinations, using his speed, making Mikey miss, he can do that for 12 rounds and withstand any onslaught that Mikey brings to him, he can win the fight. But it's going to be a hard fight for him, given that Mikey has game-changing power as well in 135. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Bellator was exciting this weekend. One Boxing King 1 feels Mikey will win. Philippe Joel thinks Mikey will win. Double A, Double X thinks Linares beats Mikey. Is it true Anthony Joshua doesn't want to fight Luis Ortiz? I don't know. Luis Ortiz is fighting Deontay Wilder, and we'll get to that because that's a dangerous, dangerous fight for Deontay Wilder. DJ, Georgie, Porgy, Linares is a dangerous fighter. 31, etc., etc. Linares has the speed and skill and power. Live dog on any fight. Eloy Ceja feels that Mikey Garcia wins hands down. He has a better jab. Power is always balanced. Has better footwork. He's on a whole different level. Let's see, a better jab, definitely better power. In terms of footwork, Mikey's always balanced. He's always in place for a perfect shot. Linares, though, the way he moves in and out of the ring, he has excellent footwork as well. Linares beats Mikey, a crafty veteran setting up traps and taking away his power. But what happens when Mikey Garcia lands on Jorge Linares? Lands those shots. You never know. Linares always looks vulnerable when he gets hit with good, clean shots. He gets cut, too. Linares has the size and skills to pull an upset. Tragic hip-hop. Mikey wins, I think. He's on the rise. Is Lomachenko versus Rigondeaux official? Yes, it is. It's happening in December in New York. We'll get to Rigo and Loma later, but quickly, I think Loma has a size advantage in that fight. Linares versus Flanagan can happen if this Mikey Garcia fight doesn't happen. If Mikey Garcia chooses to fight Miguel Cotto, I'll bet you any amount of money we'll see Linares versus Flanagan, and I like Linares in that fight. Jacobs versus Canelo. Daniel Jacobs signed with Eddie Hearn over the weekend, which was like, what the hell? That was something extremely unexpected. I was surprised. I guess Alan Heyman's still his manager, but he's going to be fighting exclusively on HBO, which I don't know what kind of precedent that sets because all the Heyman fighters fight for Showtime, Fox, or I think that's it, Showtime and Fox and FS1. So it's interesting to see how this changes the landscape in terms of the PBC fighters, to be honest. If any other PBC fighters make a jump over to HBO again, that'd be very interesting to see, but I was really surprised to see that. Eddie Hearn mentioned that he wants to target the winner of Canelo Triple G after this first fight that Daniel Jacobs has. Eddie Hearn's going to start promoting fights here in the U.S., the first one being in New York at the Coliseum, where Daniel Jacobs is fighting Luis Cuba Arias. It's a big step up for Cuba as well. Let's see here. Cotto's too big for Mikey. I don't know, man. Miguel Cotto's Miguel Cotto is a small 154-pounder. Seeing both guys in person, I think they're around the same size, to be honest. Let's see here. All right, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next thing that I wanted to touch on. Andre Ward retiring. That was a shocker, right? Man. They say life's about timing, And the timing of this, Ward leaves on top, obviously. He gets the biggest win of his career, an emphatic stamp, boom, KO over Sergey Kovalev. No one was expecting him to knock out Kovalev except for him. Actually, he told us that he felt that he was going to get a knockout in that Kovalev fight. And he leaves the sport not only as #1 pound for pound on many people's lists, but a 2-division world champion, someone who hadn't been beaten since he was 13. And just the timing of it, Ward said that he retired because the wear and tear on his body, and then the desire to train because of the wear and tear that was happening in his body. After a certain point, like, he achieved everything that he wanted to achieve. And I asked Andre Ward this question many times before. I'm like, look, you're going from 168 to 175. You fight the man, you beat the man. What else is there to do? You reached your goal. Like, when does it stop? When's a good time to say goodbye, or what do you have planned next? And the last time I asked him the question, which was after the Kovalev fight in Vegas, he's like, you know what, I don't know. I got to sit down and think. Maybe run at cruiserweight. I would have loved to see Andre Ward at cruiserweight. I felt that if he were to fight Tony Bellew, he would have beaten Tony Bellew. It would have been a good fight, but I would have thought that Ward was just a little too technical for Bellew. Bellew a little too slow. Will Andre Ward come back? he might come back for one more. I could see him coming back. Actually, you know, it's a weird thing. So he announced the retirement, and immediately I felt he'll be gone for 2 years and he'll come back. Who knows? Who knows? You never know with fighters when they say they retire and then they come back for one fight and then they really retire. But I think Andre Ward leaves a very complicated legacy. And I say complicated because a lot of fans gave him a lot of grief and criticism. A lot of it which I felt wasn't right. A lot of people felt he wasted his prime years with the whole dispute with his old promoter where he didn't fight for like 18 months or something like that. My whole thing is this. Andre Ward was an Olympic gold medalist, the last gold medalist that we had here in the United States. He went undefeated. No one really tested him up until that first Kovalev fight, which I felt, honestly, Sergey Kovalev won by 1 point. And certainly he is a Hall of Famer, given that he cleaned out the 168-pound division. He cleaned out the light heavyweight division, minus Adonis Stevenson. But, I don't know, Adonis Stevenson has been reluctant over the past few years to fight anybody, really, outside of the PBC guys. We saw what happened with that Kovalev fight. Would have been huge. He would have had a great chance against Sergey Kovalev, even though I felt that Sergey Kovalev probably would have beaten Adonis Stevenson. So he had a lot of missed opportunities Adonis Stevenson had. But with that, you know, Andre Ward was so dominant during the course of his whole career. No one even got close to befuddling him or being competitive with him up until that first Kovalev fight. And even in that first Kovalev fight, he admitted that he had injuries in that fight. He had a messed up knee. So I think for sure it's a very convoluted legacy that he leaves. But I think for me, he's one of the few guys that was the real deal on the screen and off the screen. Like they say a lot of times, don't ever meet your sports idols because your perception of them will be completely crushed because you'll find out that they're really dirtbags or they're not what you imagine them to be or how they're packaged to be. You know, everyone's human, but I'm comfortable saying that what I saw from Andre Ward in my interactions with him during fight weeks, at workouts, I would feel extremely comfortable telling parents or when I have kids meeting this guy, because I think thick and through he's a really classy guy and a role model, I think, for kids that they could be proud of, that they know that this guy isn't a farce. Like, he is what he is. And I think to me that's the most important impression that I'm left with Andre Ward, is he was such a classy guy and such a true real role model. And I think he should be given a lot more credit from American fans, because he was an Olympic gold medalist. He never talked bad. He never talked smack. He wasn't involved in any sort of controversies. He wasn't out, you know, committing crimes, hitting people, no domestic, nothing. This guy was squeaky clean, good-looking kid, multiple-time world champion, undefeated, last American Olympic gold medalist, and for some reason he never caught on. You could argue that he wasn't ever marketed right, that he wasn't promoted the right way outside of Oakland, but thick and through, man, I think Andre Ward was a champion that people could be proud of to call their favorite fighter, and he was a champion's champion. And that's the thing that always leave my mark with Andre Ward, that he's probably one of the few guys that I would feel comfortable telling my kid, you know what, he's a stand-up guy. What you see is the truth. He's a true role model thick and through, to be honest. He will be known, to me, the top Andre Ward performances that I will always remember him by. And I think, to me, his most important victory, and you can make an argument for this, are the victories he had in the Super 6. That fight against Kessler. Kessler was seeded #1 to win that tournament, the Super 6 at super middleweight. And Ward boxed the pants off that guy, and he won. And Ward wasn't the favorite to win that tournament. And I think that's really, that performance put the world on alert for Andre Ward. It showed people, hey, I'm here. I've arrived. that could be his most important performance of his entire career. Because of that, he kind of set the precedent and set the world on alert. The second one, to me, that you can make an argument with was his win over Carl Froch. Carl Froch, more experienced, naturally bigger guy. And here's the caveat. Andre Ward was hurt in that fight. He broke his hand in that fight. And he outboxed Carl Froch and made him look basic with a broken hand. Dude, that's Carl Froch. Carl Froch ain't no joke, you know. Kessler beat him. Ward beat him. Carl Froch will probably end up in the Hall of Fame as well. But he was able to dominate Carl Froch and make him look basic with one hand. What guy's able to do that? Carl Froch is a handful, you know. His second win over Sergey Kovalev, put the exclamation point on that, made the adjustments. I would say those are the three biggest wins of Andre Ward's career. And really, I think the two Super 6 wins are the ones I think that, to me, left the biggest impression of how skillful Andre Ward is and his ability to be able to adapt, make adjustments, and do whatever you did as a fighter well and do it better. I remember his fight with Sakio Bika. Bika's a very dirty guy, would work on the inside, rough you up, and Ward turned the tables around on him and roughed him up, worked really well on the inside, and showed that, hey, you know, what you can do, I can do better. Same with Arthur Abraham when he fought him at the StubHub Center. Same exact thing. So I salute Andre Ward if this decision is final. He had a brilliant career. Hadn't lost a fight since he was 14 years old, and really, he's a guy that I think we should appreciate more, given how well he not only represented our country, the United States, how well he represented himself as an athlete, but also how well he represented boxing as a whole and really keeping a positive and clean image out there. So Andre Ward, I salute you, man. That was a hell of a career. Thank you for all the great fights that you gave us. More personally, thank you for always giving me time to talk to you, to always keep your gym open to me. You and Virgil were always welcoming to me. Always thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I always gave you a fair shake, and I really appreciate you giving me the chance to get to know you as a person during those chats we've had over the years for your fights. And really, I honestly really appreciate that, Andre. Probably not watching, but if by chance you are watching it, I want to thank you and tell you I'm really, really grateful, and that I really do think that you were a champion's champion and a true role model for people and for children. So thank you so much. Now moving on to other things happening in the world of combat sports. That Bellator MMA show, guys, was freaking legit. That was a great show. A lot of action-packed fights, a lot of knockouts. So Aaron Pico is this prospect. Okay, there was a lot of hype on Aaron. How do I word this correctly? I want to say he was like a blue chip prospect, the most hyped prospect in MMA in the last like 5, 6, 7 years. I think the last hyped up prospect before Rory McDonald, because when Rory McDonald came on the scene, I was like, oh my God, Rory McDonald, he messes up George St. Pierre. This guy is going to be so good. And Rory had a lot of success early on, and then, you know, people figured him out and all that. But yeah, I did Gohan Saki, man. That guy's all power punches from that guy. That guy's exciting, and that dude's dangerous. People are gonna have to watch out for that guy, because that guy can fight, and his specialty was always striking. And he showed with that last fight, Jesus Christ, the power that Gohan Saki has. It's crazy, game-changing power, and not a lot of people have one-punch power. People talk about guys like Conor McGregor. Oh yeah, the power. Conor McGregor's a volume puncher. He takes people out with a volume of punches. Not just one punch puts him out. Gokan Saki takes people out with one punch. You know who else has one punch power? Freaking Paul Daley. Paul Daley in that Lorenz Larkin fight. At any moment in a Paul Daley fight, he's either going to get knocked out or he's going to knock the other guy out. That's why I like watching Paul Daley. I remember the most exciting fight I saw Paul Daley in was in person when he fought Nick Diaz in Strikeforce. Jesus Christ, I was going freaking nuts over that fight because he had Nick hurt and then Nick came back and put him out. You can never count a guy out like Paul Daley, but you always know that he has game-changing power in those fights. And with that one, it's weird. He like clipped him on the top of the head, and Lorenz Larkin, his body kind of like just froze. He just stayed there, and then Daley went up to finish him up. But it's just weird how sometimes when you throw a punch, it gives your body like this delayed reaction. Like you get buzzed and you're like, stay frozen, and then a second later you go ahead and get knocked out. That happens actually a lot with body punches. When you get hit in the liver, it registers it, but you feel the pain like maybe a second later. You get hit and you're like, and then you're like, oh shit, and then you go down. So Bellator put on a great card. Check out Paul Daley getting the knockout over Lorenz Larkin. That was a brutal knockout. Aaron Pico, back to Aaron Pico. I know I kind of got sidetracked. So Aaron Pico, a lot of fanfare. People were expecting big things of him because of his wrestling background. He was #1 on the national scene in wrestling for a very, very long time. I actually met Aaron Pico when he was boxing as a little kid, like as a 10-year-old, 10 or 11, 12, somewhere around there at the La Habra Boxing Club. So, do you know Julian? Yeah, we interview him all the time, Jackson. So, Pico lost his first fight in Madison Square Garden. He got submitted pretty quickly, and then he bounced back and he just got this beautiful knockout win in his second fight. He kind of like slipped and landed an uppercut, and he knew it was lights out, and the guy fucking fell flat on his face and just it took him out. So big ups to both those guys getting wins. Bellator always puts on good shows, good fights. And the Gohan Zaki one, that guy's going to be a terror in the division, to be honest. So I'm going to go ahead now and open it up to your guys' live chat comments, and we'll go back and forth. So go ahead and start throwing in your guys' comments, and I'll start reading them right now. Let's see here. We got some Ward fans here. Tyler Perkins. Is Hunter and Kovalev official? I haven't heard anything about that, to be honest. That's news to me. That'd be kind of funny, though. Did Ward retire because Hunter is training Kovalev now? Hold a second. Am I missing something? I haven't heard about Virgil Hunter training Sergey Kovalev. I haven't even heard about anything like that. Okay, let's see. All right, here are your guys' comments. Here we go. Boxing Tribe. Marcos, will you see boxers take a knee like NFL players during the national anthem? I don't know. We might. It seems like it's a trend. So, Fernando Hernandez. Who do you like in the Joshua fight? Joshua against who? Joshua against Pulev? If you're talking about Pulev, Anthony Joshua, I think, will dispatch of him fairly easily. Rigondeaux versus Lomachenko. Man, that's a tough fight. You got two guys that are extremely skilled. 2 gold medals between them. Have blasted through the competition. Lomachenko lost his second fight against Orlando Salido. Guillermo Rigondeaux been knocked down a few times, but he's still been extremely dominant in fights. I think the real question there is how big of a factor the weight is going to play in this fight. And if Lomachenko uses that weight to his advantage in terms of being in front of Guillermo Rigondeaux, pressuring him, and landing cleanly where he's noticing the difference in power because of the weight. I think that's really the real thing. But the other thing too, and I want to say that yes, that Lomachenko is going to be able to cut the ring off and set up traps for Rigondeaux. But the other thing is, will Lomachenko be able to do the things he's done with these other opponents against Rigondeaux, who's always taking punches away from people, putting them in bad positions where they can't throw punches because he's always moving around. Honestly, guys, this fight could end up being a very boring fight. I'm not going to lie. It's a fight I'll enjoy because I like seeing highly technical fights, but don't expect an action-packed fight. It's going to be a very technical, high-speed chess type fight where you're only going to see a few clean punches being landed in rounds. So don't come into it expecting like it's going to be some action-packed rock'em sock'em robot type fight, because it's not going to be that. It's going to be a highly technical fight. All right, guys, keep the questions coming as we try to go ahead and get through all of them. Who do you favor in the Canelo versus Gennady rematch? It all depends on time, my friend. And that's from CXSG90. It all depends on time, because right now, youth is on the side of Canelo Alvarez. And Gennady Golovkin being 35, 36, at any one of these fights, age is going to start showing up. And a lot of people believe that age has already started showing up for Gennady Golovkin. I like to think not. I just think that he's fought in really elite level guys, and he can't do the things that he used to be able to do in these fights because he's fighting elite level guys. And when you place an elite level guy versus another elite level guy, you can't get the results that you usually get when you fight okay or good fighters compared to elite level guys. They're elite level for a reason, because they're really freaking good. And against really freaking good players, you rarely get knockouts. Very, very rarely do you get knockouts when it's elite versus elite, best versus best. It's usually an extremely close and competitive fight. I think that both fighters can make adjustments in the fight. I think Golovkin in this rematch might come out a little bit more aggressive, try to work the body a little bit more, and I don't like that, to be honest. I think that he should still come out and box, because without that judge, he still wins the fight for me 7-5. So if he just does a little tune-ups here and there, doubles up the jab, does a better job of cutting the ring off against Canelo, works the body shots, throws combinations when Canelo's throwing combinations as well, I think he has a good chance of beating Canelo decisively. On the flip side, Canelo has a lot of advantages now coming into the fight, and I think the biggest advantage Canelo has is the confidence, knowing that Gennady Golovkin can't knock him out. Well, he can, but in his mind, he's thinking, you know what? I went 12 rounds with this dude. He landed some big punches on me flush, and I was still there right in front of him, and he couldn't do anything to him. So I think, Canelo Alvarez can make adjustments. He can throw more combinations as well. To me, he would have won the fight if we would have just thrown a little bit more against Gennady Golovkin. If he would have just thrown a little bit more punches and been a little bit more consistent with his attack, he would have taken those rounds that I scored for Golovkin. But because he was only throwing or maybe landing one or two punches, and Gennady was consistently outworking him overall as a whole in the rounds, I gave a lot of those close rounds to Golovkin because of that. But both guys have a lot of advantages coming into the fight, but I think the longer the fight takes to make, the more advantages it has for Canelo, because he is young, he's in his physical prime right now, and Golovkin, in any one of these fights, age is going to creep up. Never know when. You don't know how well Golovkin has taken care of his body. He could be a freak athlete like Floyd, where nothing starts showing up till he's 40 years old, so remains to be seen. Just scrolling through your comments, guys, so give me a second. I'm trying to go to the last one I went to. Triple G versus Billy Joe Saunders. Excuse me. I think Gennady Golovkin wins. Do you think Froch wishes he fought Triple G now? I don't know. Joshua versus Wilder, if it ever happens, who do you favor? Anthony Joshua. I think he's more technical, though. I think Wilder will surprise people. He will do a lot better than what people are giving him credit for. And here's the other thing, too. I can see Wilder knocking out Joshua because Wilder has a very, very good 1-2. It's very quick and it's very powerful. And we saw what happened with Klitschko in the 1-2s, how he almost had Anthony Joshua out. The other thing is cardio. Joshua gets tired. He'll start out strong, gets tired in the middle, and then he comes back. Wilder has showed that he does have the conditioning. He can move around, and he doesn't get tired. So let's see here. Rigo has to go up 2 weight classes. Yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough. You don't know, a guy 2 weight classes up, you don't know how he's going to be able to take a punch from a guy who's 2 weight classes bigger than him. So it's a lot of questions there. And if you have a great big guy against a great small guy, the great big guy already has the advantages because he's bigger. Imagine you're going up against a guy that has the same skills as you, just as good as you, but he just happens to be a little bigger, and because he's a little bigger, he punches a little harder. That obviously is going to have an effect on how you take the punches and how you fight. Let's see here. Crawford versus Jeff Horn, 147. Really? Really, bruh? Really? Oh, yeah. With Andre Ward retiring, I have Terrence Crawford as #1 pound-for-pound fighter. Let's see here. Yeah, it is an interesting fight, Joe. Extremely interesting. Triple G versus Billy Joe Saunders. I favor Gennady Golovkin. Crawford versus Danny Swift. Skill or timing. I think at this point, Terrence Crawford is just too much for a lot of people. He's just a Here's the thing, man. Terrence Crawford, like, figures people out really quick, and dude, it's so hard to prepare for this guy. Are you going to prepare for a Terrence Crawford that's going to come out as southpaw, or are you going to prepare for a Terrence Crawford that's going to come out as an orthodox? Like, that's double duty for you in training camp. You know how difficult that is? Oh, man. Let's see, you guys. Keep answering or putting your questions down. It's a good banner we got going on. Do you think Chris Eubank would give Triple G trouble? His work rate's mad and his uppercuts are deadly. Yes, I do think Chris Eubank would give Gennady Golovkin a lot of trouble because of the speed and power. This guy can move in and out, and I think he will give Gennady Golovkin trouble, but I think at the end of the day, Golovkin would be able to cut the ring off and punish him really bad, and I think he could probably end up knocking out Chris Eubank Jr. based on the styles. Yeah, I heard about this Canelo missing weight. I don't think so. You know, the commission was right there. They would have pointed it out that if he missed weight, so I don't think so. Chris Eubank versus Daniel Jacobs. Great fight. Great fight. I actually I favor Eubanks in that fight. I think that's a bad style for Danny Jacobs, to be honest. Let's see here, guys. Keep sending them. Wilder would stop Joshua, says Derek B. Canelo State Training 100. He's the only thing I give GG is his stamina at his age. Andre Ward going 2 fights with COVID contributed to his retirement. No, Andre Ward said that he pretty much said like the desire wasn't there anymore because of like his body like breaking down. So, Combat Fanatic. Andre Berto wants to compete in the UFC. How do you see him doing if he does? It's tough. It's tough, but I want to give Berto a better chance than regular people if he were to fight in MMA, because I don't know if you guys know this, but Andre Berto comes from a fighting family. His brother fights MMA. His sister fights MMA. So the training's there and the knowledge is there. So I think he'd have a easier transition over to MMA, but it's really hard. You know, it's hard to be competent and gain a competency in wrestling and in jiu-jitsu in a quick period of time. We saw with CM Punk. Like, the guy got taken down within seconds, you know? It's really hard. You got to really put in the time and the work, because these MMA guys, the level that they're at, the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu, all around, just in general, like the standard is really high up there. And these guys coming in are the equivalent of high school, if not better, wrestlers that have been wrestling for 10, 15 years. You know, so there's a lot of high skill level now entering with your just novice MMA guy coming into MMA. But, you know, obviously Berto has a big caveat. His stand-up experience coming from a fighting family and seeing that his brother and sister fight in MMA. So I think out of all the people, he can have a successful transition to MMA. And I think because he's been around those other aspects of MMA, that the learning curve for him would be shortened a little bit, but it's still a very tall order for him jumping in like that. Gary M, thanks for the support, bro. Really appreciate it. Luis Ortiz versus Deontay Wilder. Jeez, that's a great fight. It's a tricky fight. The real question here is the condition that Luis Ortiz shows up. His last 2 fights, he hasn't looked good. He's looked a little old, to be honest. So you got to think, you know, what version of Luis Ortiz are we getting in this Deontay Wilder fight? We don't know. You know, it could be that the other 2 opponents that he had, he wasn't up for him. He wasn't motivated, and he'll get motivated for this fight because it's a huge fight. And we could see the best Luis Ortiz in this fight. Though his last 2 fights, honestly, guys, he has not looked good. He's looked old. So it could be something where Wilder's catching him at the right time. Ortiz hasn't been too active either as well. Wilder's coming off an injury, but with Wilder, it only takes one punch. He could be losing every single freaking round of a fight. And he just needs to connect on you one time. And he should be the real one time Deontay Wilder. Because, yeah, he touches you one time and you're out. That fight with Gerald Washington, he lost. To me, he lost all the rounds. But the first real punch he connected on Gerald put him out. So it's a good fight. It's a dangerous fight for both fighters. Because Wilder, honestly, is at risk of being outboxed really, really bad against someone like Luis Ortiz. And Luis Ortiz, he's gonna show you where the skill discrepancy is, because he comes from the Cuban school and he comes from such a decorated amateur pedigree. Ortiz is good. It's just you gotta realize too where Ortiz is at this point of his career. He's older. He hasn't been as active, and his prior fights haven't been that great. So who knows where he's at in terms of his condition. Let's see here, guys. A few more questions because I'm losing my voice right now. I apologize. Okay, let's see here. Why aren't these titles unified quicker in boxing? That's a good question, Leonardo. And dope name, by the way. So why aren't the titles unified quicker in boxing? They're not, because people want to hold on to their title belts for money. We live in an age where fighters don't fight the best right away in this day and age. They want to build fights, marinate fights for more money. You know, boxing is a business, obviously, and these fighters have every right to go ahead and make the most amount of money they can as possible. I will never put down a fighter because of that, and I'll never disrespect a fighter because of that. And I agree with them. They have every single goddamn right to go in there and make as much money as they possibly can. But because of that, we are not seeing champions fight champions. They're going and doing their mandatories, their optional defenses. And honestly, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, belts do matter. If you're a world champion, you get paid more. You have more clout with networks. Networks will want to feature you because you're a world champion. And obviously, you want to stay world champion. So they go and they fight these opponents that have no business fighting them. Or they'll go into mandatories. And obviously, they have to fight the mandatories because that's how they keep their belts. But it's a culture right now of, it's not, what's the right word? Like, the urgency isn't there to have unification fights. I think this year's really changed the page a bit because we have seen unification fights. We have seen attitudes of these fighters change. So, you know, we got to commend guys like Thurman and Spence wanting to unify, Canelo and Golovkin for unifications. Guys like Terrence Crawford, who's willing to go clean out divisions and then go and fight the African fighter, what's his name, Ndongo, to go ahead and unify the division. So I think we're a step in the right direction. But to me, that's why I feel people aren't going into unifications as readily, because of those reasons I stated. Let's see here. Jacobs versus David Lemieux. I got Danny Jacobs. I think Mike Perez is the dark horse in that tournament, to be honest. But that's the other thing. As long as he can stay consistent, you know. Let's see here. Fury versus Briggs. Shannon Briggs, really? Is Shannon Briggs even allowed to fight? I like Shannon Briggs. He's a funny dude, but didn't he get popped for steroids? And that's not the first time, so I would imagine that's like a lengthy ban from boxing. So I wouldn't expect seeing him anytime soon unless he fights like in Mexico or like overseas or anything. Let's see here. Okay, guys. Eric Donovan. Okay, I'll check him out, Gary. I'll see what he's all about. Kovalev versus Stevenson. We got to see where Sergey Kovalev is right here, because a lot happens here when you get knocked out. a lot happens here when you get your first loss. Some guys just can't handle it anymore when they either get knocked out for the first time or lose for the first time. They kind of lose it mentally. They don't have that chip on their shoulder anymore, that edge that, you know what, no one can hurt me, no one can touch me, I am that fucking good. And when someone gets their first loss, they lose that, and they start questioning themselves. They start doubting themselves. They're not as confident in themselves as they were before. The great fighters that do suffer losses and continue to have great careers are able to separate themselves because they are great fighters, but because they have a great mental game too. They realize, you know what? Just had a bad night. That could have happened to anybody. Out of 10 times, I probably would have won 9 times out of those 10 times. So that's a big question with Sergey Kovalev. Where is he mentally right now? How much did that knockout loss and those 2 losses to Andre Ward do to him as a fighter? And is he questioning himself at this point? Does he not have that self-belief that he once had before? Because this guy was this boogeyman, just walking through people, this Terminator, you know, and then he got made human in this fight with Andre Ward. So we got to see where he's at in terms of that. Let's see here. Mandem, Jen, J, and R. What's the best match you've watched live? Fight and atmosphere. Well, there's a few that come off the top of my head. Pacquiao Marcus 4 was nuts, man. It was crazy. And like you had this feeling something dramatic was going to happen. It's a really weird thing. Like, you just can't explain it, but you just knew because the atmosphere was super electric. And I remember they hit Marcus's music. He's coming out, and it's like crazy loud. And I remember I was looking at the crowd, and I'm just like, Jesus, man, like something crazy something dramatic is gonna happen in this fight. And then we're all there, and the knockout happens, and it's like etched in my mind, that knockout when it happened, because I remember all of a sudden I just see feet, boom, boom, hitting the floor, and I look to my right, and I see Manny's wife just going ballistic, crazy, like screaming, and Bob's like grabbing her, telling her it's okay. The top-ranked press people at the front run to the ring. You see Boo Boy like scrambling, running to the ring, and he's like already like crying, and everybody on press row is like, oh shit. And then you don't see Manny moving for like a minute. And I always remember this too, and I always felt that this was very unprofessional of the guys to do this. So we had some of the network guys from a Mexican network. They were celebrating Manny Pacquiao getting knocked out. They were shaking each other's hands, giving each other hugs. And I'm like, you guys are supposed to be professionals. You're supposed to be objective and unbiased. Like, why are you doing that? Like, you know, like, and that's another thing that always stuck with me, like how unprofessional I felt that was. That was a crazy atmosphere. The other one was Chavez Martinez when they fought at the Thomas and Mack in Las Vegas, that 12th round. Where Chavez scored the knockdown of Sergio. That place went freaking ballistic. I remember I'm sitting there typing, and then Sergio gets hurt. He gets backed into the ropes. Chavez continues, lands a sneaky little hook, and down goes Martinez. And that whole place erupted. I got showered with beer. I'm like typing, and I just see this just showers of just beers being thrown. I have to close my laptop so it doesn't get splashed with beer. I got soaked. And then that place was like nonstop crazy up until the end of the round. Everybody was on pins and needles because we all thought that maybe Chavez was going to do it and put away Sergio Martinez. Another fight that sticks out to my mind with a crazy atmosphere, and you guys might not believe this, but Leo Santa Cruz versus Abner Mars at the Staples Center. That was a great freaking atmosphere that they had there at the Staples Center. It makes me excited to see them fight again. And it felt like it was a much bigger fight than it was. Both guys were, I believe, undefeated at that point. And they just did a great job of packing people in there. And it was crazy loud in there. It was a really good atmosphere. And it felt like a Las Vegas championship fight. Excuse me, guys, losing my voice. So yeah, those are the 3 fights that, off the top of my head, atmosphere-wise, really leave an imprint in my mind. Okay, let's see here. Just gonna quickly scroll, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up, guys. You want my hairline? What do you mean? I'm not going bald yet, guys. Come on. Kovalev, Shabransky. Kovalev is gonna. Well, we'll see where Kovalev is at, but Kovalev should knock this guy out pretty easily, to be honest. Super middleweight tournament. I think honestly, it's gonna come down to Eubank and Calum Smith, and we'll see if Calum's the real goods. You know, Jello. What are you talking about, dude? What fight? What fight are you talking about, Jello? You're one button away from getting muted. Klitschko retired when? Klitschko retired this year. You had a lot of retirements this year, guys. You had Vladimir Klitschko, Juan Manuel Marquez, Timothy Bradley, Andre Ward, Japanese fighter, I forget his name, Robert the Ghost Guerrero, Floyd Mayweather. That's 7 retirements right there, guys. So there's a lot of people retiring this year. Chavez Martinez, GGG versus Hagler. Come on, guys. Marvin Hagler. You and Do the Right Thing. You and Argentino Valentino are tied for life. So Do the Right Thing is referring to my interview with Angel Garcia, in which, if you guys haven't watched it, it's a really funny interview. It's the thing when people see me at fights or on the streets, always bring up like, hey dude, what was up with Angel in that interview? So just go look up on the search terms on YouTube, Angel Garcia, Marcos Villegas, crazy, and you'll see that interview pop up. Action Bastard. Hey, are you getting Dragon Ball Fighter Z when it comes out, and who's your favorite character? Dude, I'm freaking hyped for that game. At first, I wasn't hyped for that game because, for me, like Dragon Ball, in a Dragon Ball Fighter, and I'm totally going on a video game tangent right here, but we're so used to these Dragon Ball games where like you're able to fly around and it's non-linear. And you know, that's how Dragon Ball is in the series, you know, like you're flying around everywhere. You're not stuck to like a 2D platform fighting. So when they announced the game, I thought like, meh, like it's just not really Dragon Ball. It's not what Dragon Ball is. You know, Dragon Ball, you should be able to fly around and do crazy combos and send people flying in all directions and fly in all directions. Then I saw the gameplay and I was like, oh shit, this game looks legit. And then I started seeing that it's made from the guys who made Guilty Gear. And Guilty Gear, to me, is one of my favorite fighters. Same exact controls, same button scheme. And then I started seeing the graphics, and that's what really sold me. The graphics and like the sound effects. Like, it's so true to the series and to the comic book. That's what sold me on the game. Is like, I feel like I'm playing like a live action comic book when I've seen the clips of that game. So I'm super excited. I want to see the full roster and see who they come out with. I haven't had a chance to play with any of the characters in the game so far, but I'm pretty stoked on it. I want to go ahead and get my hands on it. Let's see here. Is there any interest in Santa Cruz Frampton 3? I am. Those were great fights, great atmosphere. I think, though, if a third fight does happen, it has to happen in Ireland. And I will be there because you Irish fans are crazy. You Irish fans make events so much fun, and it's just being around that environment, it just makes it a really fun event to go ahead and cover. So I have interest. I think that'll happen. I don't know why Gennady Golovkin gear is hard to get a hold of. I guess a lot of people like buying the hats. Legit though, his gear is nice, especially his Triple G hats. EA ever gonna make another fight night? I hope to God they are. They've been busy with the UFC games, so I just really hope that they give us a fight night at last. So, all right, guys, that concludes our hour live chat, recapping the weekend action that we saw in the world of boxing and MMA. I'm Marcos Villegas. Go ahead and subscribe to us. If you're not subscribed, though, I'm having a brain fart. If you guys are watching this, you guys are subscribed. Duh. But, yeah, I will keep doing this Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and hope that I'm able to do this consistently now, from now on, every Monday at 4 or 3. 4 or 3, I don't know. I'm going to have to ask you guys. What's a better time for you guys, 4 or 3? Let me know real quick. But, yeah, hopefully I'll be able to do this more consistently with you guys. Go ahead and follow us at FightUpTV on Twitter and on Instagram. Follow me as well if you're not. At Hey, it's Marcos V. Same thing on Twitter and Instagram. Give us a like on Facebook as well. And make sure to spread the word of Fight Hub as well. Tell your friends that like combat sports or who may have an interest in combat sports to go ahead and give us a subscribe and start following us the channel. Go ahead and help us grow. I want to hit 500,000 subscribers. So we have 200,000 more subscribers to go. So please spread the word about our channel. Let us get to that goal. If we get 500,000, Jesus, I'm going to throw a huge party and invite all you guys to it. I'm going to have this huge event, and I'm going to invite all you subscribers and all you supporters over the last years to go to it and stuff. So thank you guys so much. Be on the lookout. We're going to start doing our unboxing videos again. We got some really cool gear. We got the gloves and the shoes that Conor McGregor used in his fight with Floyd Mayweather. We got boxing shoes that are made out of Michelin tires. I don't know. They're made by Everlast. And then we're going to go ahead and unbox these limited edition gloves that Tidal has, commemorating Oscar De La Hoya's Olympic win, and then some Ali gloves too as well. And I'm going to start throwing in random stuff. I'm probably going to start unboxing video game stuff, to be honest, because I just like video games and I just want to do it, and I just want an excuse to spend my money on collector edition video game stuff. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much. Be on the lookout for content up this week. As always, we're always uploading stuff every single day. Thank you guys so much. Have a good rest of your week. Hope you had a great Monday, and be safe out there, and treat each other well, guys, okay? Really appreciate you guys joining into this Q&A live chat, recapping all the action over the weekend. So, okay, one more. Philip Joel, seriously, who wins? Who wins what? I'll answer this last question. Who wins what? Cruiserweight tournament, who wins? My pick for the Cruiserweight tournament is going to be Garcia. I think he wins, but he's in there tough, okay? There's a chance that... yeah, I see that final. I don't know. I just feel at this point that he's too good right now, Garcia. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. See you later, and I really appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.